Yes.
I think we are.
Okay. Then let's do this. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody. The time being 6:02, I call to order the City of Glenwood Springs Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It is February 23rd, 2021. This is our regular meeting for the month. And is it Jen? Jen, are you our maitre d' tonight? Are you taking care of us? Will you take a roll call, please?
I will do my very best.
Thank you.
So if you're ready for me to do roll call, sorry.
Do roll call
Yes.
quick, and then I'll do the instructions. That's fine.
Oh, okay, perfect. Commissioner Dem.
Here.
Commissioner Shaver.
Here.
Commissioner Sipperly.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Schachter. Commissioner Wissing. Commissioner West.
Here.
And then alternate Commissioner Waller.
Excellent. Thank
Looks
you.
like you have a quorum.
4, 1, 2, 3, 5. Right? Yeah. Thank you, Jen. Let's see. The webinar ID, if you'd like to join our meeting tonight via Zoom, is 828-1916-0381. And if you want to join via cell phone, you're looking at 1-346-248-7799. I think that was right. Yes. Okay, excellent. And before we jump into this, congratulations to Commissioner Shaver and Wissing for their reappointment. Nice to see you guys for another 3 years. And also congratulations to Commissioner White for being promoted to a regular commissioner from an alternate. So welcome, everybody. Moving on to item number 3, and maybe before we go down the agenda, I just want to say that we're going to move item 6, which is our first new item, planning item 6920, ahead of the continued item B, which is the planning file 6620, just so they don't have to sit through our municipal code text amendments. And we have a little more time to chat about all these items. So just to let everybody know, entertaining a motion to receive the minutes from January 26th.
So moved.
Thank you.
If George was the motion, I would second.
And a second, thank you. I lost visual on Commissioner White and West. I would love for you guys to come back on.
I have a really bad internet connection, so I was trying to take the video off to save some bandwidth, but
As long as we know, as long as
I'm
you're
here.
as long as you're not hiding facial expressions and gestures, we're okay. Cool.
No,
Good we know. Thanks, Ben.
I'll get back.
yeah.
So we have, let's see, a motion and a second to receive the minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? See none, then we'll call for the question.
Commissioner Sipperly.
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yes.
Commissioner Dem.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaver.
Yes.
Commissioner West.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. Moving on to comments from citizens appearing for items that are not on the agenda. As always, item 4. And as usual, I see, oh, raise your hand, I guess, and I see nobody. So we move on from number 4 to item number 5 tonight is our first continued hearing. It is planning file 4020, special use permit to operate a large child care center at 536 South Highland Park Drive. And I think that was Trent.
No, that was me, Gretchen Ricehill. Yep.
Thank
So
you.
very briefly, during the January meeting, you heard staff and applicant presentations and you took public comment. As is our normal practice, you continued the meeting to allow time for additional public comment. I received 35 additional written comments, which are included in your packet. Also, you asked staff to provide additional information. Oh, before I go on, after I'm done with my brief presentation, to update you on some new information that was included in your staff report, I need you to acknowledge that you all read the additional comments which were provided in your staff report. Okay, so moving on, if you recall at that January meeting, you asked staff to provide additional information on a few things. One of which was a property survey that some of you referenced during the hearing, but which some of you didn't actually find in the application. So I pulled that out and added it to your packet as a separate file. Secondly, you asked about the grade difference between 536 South Highland, which is the subject property, and the Valley View Hospital parking lot. Photos were included in your staff report, thanks to Jessica Bowser, who one of our engineers who went out and took those for me. I estimate based on the height of the cars that there's about a 8 to 9 foot grade difference between the two properties, as you can see from those photos, a fairly tall retaining wall. And lastly, regarding covenants and precedent, I need to reiterate that municipalities do not enforce private owner covenants. Nevertheless, I included some information about the covenants, the Highland Park subdivision covenants, and I questioned their applicability to the lot that was covered by the existing home, which is lot 2 of the Brittany Place subdivision. I did receive some correspondence this morning from Amanda Maurer, who's a resident of the neighborhood, and she sent me an email. And she wrote that lot 2 of the Brittany Place subdivision is subject to the Highland Park addition covenants. See the attached title commitment for both lots from Commonwealth Title from dated January 20, 2021. Schedule B 212 show the covenants recorded against the vacant lot, which is a sidebar here. The vacant lot she's referencing is a lot to the east of the lot that has the home on it. And it is also owned by Valley View Hospital. And then she goes on, and Schedule B 218 show the covenants recorded against the residents. The Brittany Place subdivision did not remove the Highland Park addition covenants from the residents, and this lot is still subject to the covenants. And by this lot, she was referencing the home, the lot with the home on it. One last thing, in my January report, I indicated that the home to the west of 536 South Highland was a religious use, and during the January meeting, I actually clarified that or corrected that. It's actually a single family home, and that's all I need to say about that. I was just clarifying that. So that's all I have to present to you, and I'm here for any questions that you have. But there is only one action item that you all need to take tonight, and you may approve with conditions, deny, or continue this application to a future hearing with a request for specific additional information. My recommendation is that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the special use permit for the Child Care Center with the suggested findings on page 9 and conditions on page 9 of my February 23rd staff report. And the suggested conditions, there were 5 of them, and I can pull them up on the screen if you want. It's at your discretion. Just let me know. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Gretchen. And I can see the report here, so I don't know if anybody else needs to see these conditions. Let Gretchen know, please.
Yep.
Also, any questions to staff at this point from the commission? Please raise your hand. Commissioner Shaver, please.
Gretchen, can you give any background as to what this Brittany Place subdivision is? And I mean, is this the only lot of that?
No. The lot to the west, the St. Boniface Church lot, and excuse me, at least one of the lots that is now Valley View Hospital parking lot are part of this Brittany Place subdivision. My notes do not indicate. Oh, I'm trying to quickly read my staff report, but no, I don't know exactly when that Brittany Place was created or why. Just a few of the lots on this part of Highland Park Edition were removed from the greater Highland Park Edition.
So they were all part of the same thing originally when.
That's my understanding, yes.
And are you comfortable with what Amanda Maurer presented today to you as being factual?
I'm taking it on its face value, to be honest with you. I go back to the fact that City of Glenwood Springs and other municipalities don't enforce these covenants. So I didn't take the research any further. I found that this was a private issue between the owner of, Valley View Hospital, who owns 536 South Highland Park, and the residents of the Highland Park and now Brittany Place subdivision.
Looks like Carl raised his hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me jump in on that. And that I think it's from your decision-making, kind of where you guys are at and what you have authority to make the decision on. Historically, the City of Glenwood Springs, nor really any other municipality that I'm aware of, takes on private covenant enforcement or makes that a condition of approval or denial of a land use application. And so really whether that research is factually accurate or not isn't relevant to your decision-making this evening. If that is a matter that needs to be taken up between property owners, just like an easement dispute or a fence line dispute or any other dispute like that, that's a private matter and not one that the city steps into the middle of.
And as part of the P&Z, we are an extension of the city. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm sorry. Local government, I should have said. You as the planning commission, local government, however you want to word it. You're not the arbiter of private disputes with regard to covenants or easements or things like that. That's just not within what we do. If they want to take it up with each other, they're more than welcome to do that, but we're not going to step in and make a legal decision about something and then make a land use decision based on a legal decision on something that we don't have any jurisdiction over.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Commissioner Zipperly, please.
Thanks. Gretchen, I did have a question about the survey and the photographs showing the parking lot and the retaining wall. I'm looking at page 4 of your staff report where the lot is outlined in red. And just below that, to the south of that is not the parking lot, but it's the access road into the upper levels of Valley View parking. I see in the shadow a little row of trees there. The survey that we looked at does show a wall at the bottom, but I'm not sure if that wall is as high. I'm pretty sure it would not be as high as the walls that we saw surrounding the parking lots. Clearly the image shown is not of the south end of the lot because there's cars parked there and this is a street. So at
Right.
underneath the southeast corner where the Valley View driveway comes around, that I'm thinking would be at a more similar to grade to the proposed project site. But I take it we don't have survey information for that part of Valley View's property.
I don't. I'd have to go back to an old file that I have when Valley View proposed a parking garage on in the image that you're referencing. It would be on the bottom right side in that area there, and I'd have to see if that survey included the area that you mentioned on the south. But you're correct. The grade does, as we all know, it does go up. That access road does increase in elevation. So I'm thinking, and I apologize, Carolyn, I haven't been to Valley View in quite a while, so I don't recall how tall that retaining wall is along that area on the south side of 536 South Highland.
Okay, thank you for that. I was just hoping
Sure.
might help solve some of their problems, but I guess that's not my job here, but thank you for your clarification.
Sure.
Hey, Carolyn, just real quick, just to clarify it in my head, the retaining wall we're looking at on the photo is that little parking lot to the west, right? You're referencing the road going uphill on the south side of the property line.
Yes, towards the southeast and just off the edge of the image, you can see Valley View owns that too.
Where the right, where the oh god, the grade is much less.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
Okay. That's okay, great, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Commissioner West, please.
Okay, I guess I drove by there to look at it, and just to kind of add some insight, you can see in the second photo there that there's a block retaining wall next to the concrete cast in place retaining wall, and the grade differential is fairly significant between the road and the property. It seemed to me like it would be difficult to create an access there. I think that's a great solution to it. My thoughts on a couple parts of it are, would it be possible to make South Highland into North Highland like a one-way to make traffic more streamlined? Whoa. Sorry about that. Seems like it might alleviate a lot of concerns of the people. Sorry about that. It seems like it might alleviate a lot of the concerns of the constituents in the neighborhood. It seems like South Highland is a pretty wide street right there, and there is plenty of parking there. Not plenty, but there is parking there. So that was kind of my thought, was that, is there a way to accommodate the flow of traffic that would appease the local residents anymore? And in just thinking about this, 44 is a pretty big number.
44.
So, just wondering
the children.
Yeah,
So you're
the number of children. Yeah, I mean, my kids go to a daycare in town, and there's 5 kids. So I mean, I know that it's a great space for it, or it's 43, but anyway, would it help everyone stomach this if the number was any smaller, and have they thought about that? So those are kind of my 2 thoughts on it.
okay. So let me the couple of thoughts that you had that I can address regarding the one way. I think that would require a study that would involve, so their traffic report didn't include any of that consideration. It would also include involvement from all the residents in the surrounding area, because everybody's going to be impacted by that decision. And then also certainly weigh in from our engineering department. So I can't address that at this moment. Carl, did you want to say something? Nope.
No, I was working on something else. Sorry.
Oh,
That's-
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I apologize. I thought you were reacting to what I was saying.
No.
And then reducing the number of children served by this facility, that's a question that is better answered by the applicant. However, this is the application that we're dealing with at hand. So I think we need to make a decision on that. But if you want, I think it's fair to have the applicant weigh in on the consideration of reducing the number of children served by this facility. And Jen, that reminds me that I did not have you bring over Maggie Brown, Margaret Brown, when I started this.
It takes a second to come
Yeah.
over, so just.
Okay, no worries. Sorry, it was my fault.
Okay, great. Any other questions to staff?
Gretchen, do you think you could bring up those conditions?
I can. Just a moment, please.
Thank you.
Okay. Marco, can you confirm that you can see these on the screen?
I can see them.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Gretchen. Quick question, Gretchen. Have we heard anything from the property owner?
The Valley View Hospital?
Yeah.
No,
Nothing. Not, hey, we have ideas. Hey, we could, nothing.
no, but then I didn't reach out to them and ask about anything.
Well, it's, in my opinion, partially their application, but okay. I'm just checking to see if they reached out. Okay, any other questions? Please raise your hand, Commission. If not, I would like to invite Maggie Brown to add additional comments, if you have any, or we can answer, ask some questions. But anyway, would the applicant care to present?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So as far as additional comments, especially to the number of spots, I do know that 44 is a lot. But as we kind of went over the last meeting, there's over 200 families in need in Glenwood Springs. So it really doesn't even get close to, I mean, it gets close because I think 44 spots serves more like 60 to 70 families just because not everybody requires full-time care. But it's sort of just, and this is the maximum number of spots this house can hold. But if we go along with construction and the room sizes are shrunk a little bit by the walls or by everything that goes along, our final licensing through the state could be less than that. So I put the application in for the maximum that the house could accommodate, just so that we didn't ever feel like we wished that there were more. And I feel like the land being on over an acre and being, so close to the old one, which had 26 spots, which are now gone and can't be relicensed according to the state, in its current state in the basement of St. Barnabas, that would only be replacing, 20 additional spots. And again, that's only 300 feet away. So those are kind of the important points that I want to make on kind of the questions that were asked tonight. Unless anyone has any other questions for me. And also I have had conversations with Valley View, but I didn't, because I was the one submitting the application and they are just leasing me the building. I haven't approached them to be a part of any of these meetings or anything like that. So that's partially my fault, I guess.
All right, thank you. Any questions to the applicant from the commission? Raise your hand. Okay, we'll see none at this point. Maggie, I'm just curious about this involvement of Valley View. Have you guys at all talked about possibly accessing this from the south side, from the Valley View side? Not necessarily where the retaining wall is, but there's other options. I mean, I'm just curious if there was a discussion.
There has been a discussion. Again, Valley View isn't funding this. I am. So more the discussion has been me bringing an engineer on site and them telling me how much that would cost. And that's more of why that's not part of this plan. But also there's, I believe, some kind of pipeline that goes along there. So we have an issue behind the house because of, there's some kind of city, and Gretchen, I think you could speak to that. There's
Try.
behind the house. So I think, grading and all of that would be an interesting challenge if you were going to do that. I do believe, because I park there every day, that retaining wall to the back is still quite high. I think it's still at least 8 feet. But I would have to double check. I was trying to see if I could find anything on Google Maps, but I can't. But it's, I don't know if that would be feasible. It's not something I've looked into.
So out of curiosity, what's the percentage you think of your kids will come from Valley View employees?
Well, I really don't know how to answer that right now. I have, just based on word of mouth and people needing care, I haven't even put this anywhere or anything like that. I have all of the rooms full with Valley View employees, as far as a wait list goes. But as far as what happens in the future and everything like that, as spots come up or come available in the center, and we don't have a written agreement yet. Again, this is something that I was gonna, if we got approval, talk to the neighbors about, having some spots available. And I've approached Valley View. There's no concrete agreement right now on how many spots are going to be available for Valley View employees and how many are going to be for just everyone else. And so we've talked about, and I broached the subject with Valley View, talking about maybe offering some spots specifically for that neighborhood so that it could be a benefit when people are looking at selling their homes and things like that, because it really is a huge reason that people can't move here or things like that. So I don't know, but right now, like I said, I could have all the spots full of Valley View employees.
You could fill it up with Valley View only, but at this point, it's not set in concrete.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
And I see Commissioner West raised his hand.
I just raised mine for Joy because Commissioner West, she doesn't have the raise hand button.
How come you don't have the raised hand? On
I'm
the
not
bottom?
quite sure. I just emailed Jen. So the question I had for you, and I know that this fluctuates, so you're not going to have a straightforward answer, but how many families have multiple children that attend the preschool, more or less?
That's a good question. I actually can look on my wait list right now and tell you. It's just going to take me just a second. I know of at least 5 off the top of my head, but let me look.
Right, because we're eliminating cars as we have multiple children from families, right?
Right. And yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of the parents were saying to me is, we have 3 kids that go there that went to the early learning center. And obviously that's part of the whole, that's part of the whole deal is that, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Let's see. So I have Prakaski's up to 1, 2, 3.
I guess as you're looking, the other kind of thought that I had, which this is nothing that the city could regulate, but would having staggered drop-off times and pickup times help with traffic control at all?
We do have staggered drop-off and pickup times. Yep, there's 2 windows for drop-off and pickups. And I just finished counting, there's 7. One of the families has 3 kids. But other than that, there's 6 other families with 2 out of the 44 spots. But again, I don't know how many of those families are 2 days a week or 3 days a week. It's just like a general wait list that I have right now for the rooms. But yes, right now we have a rolling drop off because each of the rooms, the way that the staffing is, they can only have half of the kids dropped off early because of there will only be 1 teacher in each classroom, so they can only have half of the amount in each classroom for the first hour of the drop off. And then when another teacher comes in, that's when the second set of kids comes. So exactly half of those will be in each drop off and pickup window.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No, we'll see none for now. Thank you, Maggie. And we'll move over to the public comments. And I assume everybody read the packet with all the comments in it. So we're fully informed. And what I would like to do is I would like to hear from people that have shown up tonight that have not spoken yet. I would like to hear from people that have not submitted comment to city staff. So please, if you could stick to that little request, that would be great. And please raise your hand. And I see some hands going up. Like I said, please, people that have not spoken at the last meeting. And we'll start with Mary Lee Rippey. Please.
I had to unmute. Hi.
Hi.
I wasn't thinking I would talk tonight, but I just wanted to, I've been taking notes, and this is a comment quickly to Joy White. However many people are on or not on a list right now, that's a snapshot of a moment in time. And what you as a commissioner need to look at is the, basically a worst case scenario would be 21.5 cars arriving between 6:30 and some other time, and the other 21, or maybe yet, the other first part would arrive at 8:25, and the other ones would arrive at 8:30. So there's the potential for 43 cars to arrive there. And however that shakes out, that's just simply a moment in time, but you're codifying something for someone. There are a number of issues, and I didn't submit a letter because it was very detailed, going step by step through the process. But just for all of you commissioners, there are a number of cases in the application where the terminology may is used instead of shall, saying that it's leaving it very open-ended. One of those saying that right now, I believe that she is asking for a Monday through Friday, 6:30 to 6 or 6:30 to 5:30. I'm not sure the exact thing, but Ms. Brown says that they may need to add days and additional time. And so, which is a really frightening thing for people that are living in that neighborhood. Some of the other, I do some landscaping consulting. So, so many things. Should this go beyond this point, I will be submitting a detailed letter about the application and its deficiencies to the council, to the City Council. So thank you, commissioners, all for your time, and I'll just make room for somebody else right now.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else from the public like to speak up tonight? Please raise your hand. Again, if you haven't spoken yet last month. G. Jackson, please state your name and address for the record, at least your name, not the address.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Graham Jackson. I'm a resident of the Highland Park neighborhood. I don't think Ms. Brown is completely straightforward with you about the commitment to Valley View. I heard her comment that she has broached the issue with Valley View about opening to neighborhood residents, some spots to neighborhood residents, et cetera. But the commitment letter from Valley View expressly hinges the approval of use of their property for a daycare with the condition that all spots are reserved for children of employees of Valley View. So if that's been a discussion that Ms. Brown has had with Valley View, so be it. I don't know the subject of all of her conversations with Valley View, but the approval of Valley View to use their property reserves the right for all of the spots to go to children of their employees. So I don't think the community at large, the families in general in Glenwood Springs that need daycare, I am one of them. I have 4 children and several of whom attend different daycare centers around. But realistically, I'm going to see no value from approval of this. This is strictly a benefit for employees of Valley View.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, would like to comment? Please raise your hand. No, we'll see none. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for listening to my request of not repeating yourself tonight. Thank you. Bring it back to the commission, close the public portion, bring it back to the commission for additional questions to the applicant or to Gretchen. Commissioners, please. Okay, well, maybe I'll start with one. Maggie, the last comment we just heard about that letter from the hospital, does that exist?
No, I'm reading the letter right now that's in our that's in the application. It's on page 15. He is right. It said, the letter says, let's see. I'm trying to find the exact line where it says it, that they have first right of refusal, which is kind of what we've talked about. And it's not an effort to be deceiving at all. So I apologize if that's how that comes off, but it's more the fact that we do not have a formal agreement. That is a letter that we thought we should put in to show that we do have a pending lease agreement, but there is nothing signed. That is just the letter of sort of support that we needed for the application from Valley View. So the verbiage, and again, this conversation that I just had with Valley View in the past couple of days is, again, because since Valley View really wants to keep a good relationship with the neighbors. You know, they've had to go through this with putting the helicopter in and things like that, or the helipad and the helicopter. And so in speaking with them, I broached the subject and said, you know, the architect I've been working with, he was the one who had the idea to offer some spots to the neighborhood, specifically for that neighborhood. And Valley View said, that's definitely something we can look at. So I definitely don't see this as the end all be all of, you know, there's definitely going to be 44 spots. I see this as, you know, if this goes through, this will be a conversation with the neighbors, and we're all hopefully going to get together and talk about what would be appropriate and what we want for the neighborhood going forward, because I don't want to make it so that everyone hates living there and it's way too many cars and way too many things happening. So it's something that's kind of still in the works.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another quick question I was just thinking about. If the drop-off was on South Highland, and I'm looking at the map, that's why I'm looking over there. Is that ADA compliant? Would that work for ADA up front?
Yes. As far as what our research and our architect, well, because the ADA spot is actually the one, I'm sorry, your question was, is the drop-off point at the front of the house ADA compliant, or?
Yeah, South Highland.
No. So the ADA compliant spot that we have is the driveway. There's a spot under the driveway. Okay. That's our ADA compliant spot where the ramps will take you where. So
you would have to pull into the driveway and then you can go down the ramp.
Right, for the ADA compliant spot.
So we do have an access from the street.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much, Maggie. I guess I'll bring it back to the commission, entertaining a motion in continuing planning item 4020, special use permit to operate a large child care center at 536 South Highland. And let's see, staff is recommending, I got to scroll for a bit here, hang on. Staff is recommending approval with findings and conditions.
So what are our choices here?
Our choices, we have one action item and our choices are, as usual, approval, denial, or continuance. With an approval recommended by staff.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on item 40-20, special use permit for a child care center in RM1 to deny this special use permit.
Okay, thank you. Motion is denied. Now, George, I need you to reference some findings. Why you're denying it? And it's usually the contrary of what staff findings says, since that's a recommended approval.
Well, my reasons for denying it, I don't know that are exactly contrary to
we can
the
start,
findings.
we can start with that and then you can add, or we can discuss.
Well, I find that this will be a significant impact to the neighborhood, but I think there are ways that it could be mitigated by creating a better access to an additional access to the property from the hospital side, by providing parking on the hospital side, as well as access into the building from that side, and opening up some of the parking spots and making it maybe more of a better access from Highland Park in terms of getting people in and out, and relieving congestion on that side of the property as well. You know, that would provide access for ADA and perhaps people that aren't at the hospital, working at the hospital. But I just feel like there needs to be a bigger contribution from the hospital side of things to make this work better and to alleviate traffic off of South Highland Park Drive, which I agree with the residents that it would be a significant impact to an area that really has some infrastructure issues that are certainly not the responsibility of this applicant, but is definitely the responsibility of the city, that need to be addressed as well.
I will second that.
A motion to deny and a second. Thank you, commissioners. Any discussion? Please raise your hand. George already gave us his comments in his findings, which were very informative, and we're going to go with Commissioner Zipperly, please.
Thank you. as you all know, the reason about me asking about the grades was exactly to encourage the hospital to provide more or less access to its childcare facility. I am very aware of the shortage of childcare, especially for hospital employees. So I think it would be unlikely that any spots there would open up for members of the community. And it basically makes this an exclusive and a sort of an annex to the hospital. And I feel as though they should be a little more forthcoming with a section of their property. Partly maybe I feel like that because we have not ever seen a parking plan from Valley View as has been requested. If such a plan did exist, it might be more easy to understand how they could provide access from the upper eastern part of the site. I clearly don't mean to get into any 8-foot retaining walls. But the only concern I have with this project is its impact on the roads and the community members of the Highland Park area. Their concerns are justified just as much as the needs for childcare. And I would like the hospital to participate a little more in this discussion and at least provide an easement. I'm not sure if the city would require something like paving an access road or if that could be gravel, but I think there are options for access that have not been explored that could really help save the Highland neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Superly. Any other comments? No? Okay, well, I was going to go a different route. I understand the notion to deny this. I dislike denying childcare facilities, especially one that has 44 spots. That is a lot. I think that'd be great to have that in our town. I was going to go for an approval with additional conditions, such as ADA access from South Highland only, and the other access has to be from the hospital side. I don't know if that would help Ms. Brown to get the hospital to the table and say, hey, I'm going to be your, 90% provider here. I'm going to help you out with childcare to make you a better place of employment. But the good people of the Planning and Zoning Commission want you to help me out with access from the hospital side. This is 2021. There is a way to create a walkway between the parking lot and the front door. It's 140 feet. And even if it's 7, 9, 8 feet, you can do it. Pipes can be lowered, whatever it takes. If the hospital is interested in this to make themselves and better themselves as a better place of employment, then they should be interested in this, in helping you out to access this childcare facility from the parking lot side of the hospital. So that said, I don't know if I hate to sweep this off the table and have them come back with a completely brand new thing. I understand the impact of the neighborhood. I don't even want to go there because we all know why you guys want to deny this. But if there's a way to maybe continue this and see if we can get the hospital to the table, to see if we can have a discussion, hey, let's do a winding ramp up to the front door, under a pipe, over a pipe, put a bridge over it, whatever. I'm pretty sure nowadays with stake walkways and metal walkways and great material, this can all be done. I have no doubt, especially if we leave the ADA to the street. That's why I was wondering, the driveway's there. Let's let the ADA unload over there, and let's do everybody else from the south side. So if Commissioner Shaver is anywhere inclined a little bit to maybe go for a continuance and see if we can get some more design and changes to this, so we we don't have to have them come back with a brand new application, let me know. Those are my thoughts. I think it's possible. Maybe we can also add a condition that says 10%, 15% have to be non-hospital kids. Just a thought. Commission, let me know. Commissioner Shaver.
Well, I'm totally in agreement in terms if that helps the applicant to streamline things, but I'm not sure how we write a condition that, you know, it would have to be awfully general. I think if the applicant has to come back with, I guess it's a question on my part. Can we make it specific enough and yet open it up to them to allow them to revise their input? I don't think, I'm certainly not suggesting that they totally redo their whole application. If that's what I've caused them to do, then I would withdraw my motion. But
here's how I see it. If they want to keep going with the idea and with the concept, which I think it's great, 44 spaces is fantastic. And I think Ms. Brown has this totally under control. It's just a matter of how do we access this site. So if we can do a continuance and ask for more information on how to access the site from the south and have the property owner help her out with that, we can continue. You know, sometimes suggestions can be included in a continuance, and I think this would be, I don't know, I just think this would be a case where we could do that. Instead of just say, okay, sorry, denied, and then 2 months later, hey, I finally talked to the hospital and yeah, they want to do something, we're back. If we give them 1 more month, maybe they can figure it out.
If I may,
Carl.
Chairman, on a continuance, I think that if you were inclined to go that direction, I think you'd be looking for some very specific additional information or regarding the feasibility and viability of an alternate access to the property to reduce the traffic and drop-off impact to the Highland Park neighborhood. I think that's really what you're looking for, right?
I think you hit it on the head, yes, with a lot less words than I used. So,
right.
So,
if that's what you would like to do, you could ask if that worked for
right.
For George and the second to withdraw their motion, and you could go ahead and make that motion, Chairman.
Right. I wanted to see how the commission feels about this before we do that. But thank you, Carl. Commissioner Zipperly.
I would be agreeable to that. As I mentioned, I think that access is the substantial problem with the daycare being located in this site. I would be willing to rescind my second for a continuation with a requirement of different access.
Thank you. And Commissioner Shaver.
yes, I will withdraw my motion, and I'll wait for others to provide the verbiage that is appropriate for a continuation.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Well, before we do this, I just want to run this by Ms. Brown quick. Is this something you'd be interested?
Yes, for sure. Is, just to be clear, is it a road you're talking about or a walkway?
Walkway, just an access. We have a parking lot. We have a street to get to the parking lot. All we need is to get across the street safely and then up the walkway.
Sure. Yes. If it was just a walkway, I thought it was a road this whole time.
No road, just walkway.
Yes, for sure. I could.
Same property owner, so I don't see any problems with shared parking and any of that. So.
Yeah, as long
Okay.
as I don't have to do it, it doesn't require like a whole new application because it will change like the grading and all of that plan. Do I have to resubmit all of that or?
I don't think so. That's why I'm pushing for a continuance. It's
Okay.
just we're requesting additional information, as Carl beautifully stated, what we asking for. Hang on a second, Jen, please.
I think if you were to have a satisfactory answer, if you were to continue this at the next meeting, that some of those things, those conditions can be met in the construction drawing phase or at the building permit. So I think that is one possible way to address this. I don't know if Carl agrees, but I think you could also condition the approval tonight that is a condition that is met. The applicant work with staff to provide a walkway from the Valley View parcel as a condition tonight. And then that would be addressed either at the construction drawing or building permit.
Yeah, as a condition of the continuance, Jen.
I was thinking of not continuing, but
I think that, I think for the benefit of the neighborhood, I probably think it's good to hear that commitment that Valley View is willing to work with, an alternate pedestrian access to the property and parking, as well as taking time to develop some conditions, if that works for the applicant, if that works for Valley View before we come back to the commission, conditions that would ensure that that's actually how it operated versus simply being almost aspirational in nature. So I think both the commission and the community probably would like to see that and be clear that that's the commitment that was being made.
I think a continuance makes sense at this point if we're asking for those access clarifications.
So I think you're on the spot, Mr. Chairman, to make that motion.
I am.
Mhm.
Can I?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, we can do that. In planning item 4020, special use permit to operate a large childcare center. I move to continue this planning item based on the findings that we just talked about. And Carl Hanlon laid out very nicely that we are looking for a different access from the south side.
And the additional, if that access is feasible, then also potential conditions of approval that would ensure that access was utilized so as to take off pressure from the Highland Park neighborhood.
Correct. And that, wonderful, thank you.
So would that say primary access from the south?
We can say primary, absolutely. And only ADA, well, now we're getting into details, but yes, ADA from the street and everything else from the south, primary, yep.
I'll second that.
Excellent, motion and a second. Any more discussion on this continuance? Is everybody clear with what we're asking for? Is Ms. Brown clear what we're asking for?
Yep, I think I'm clear. You want plans or some kind of, do I need to get like an engineer involved to figure out? Because yeah, I guess if it's just a walkway, I could definitely, I mean, if that gets approved, even tonight, then I could say that I would do that, even if Valley View, the property owner, I thought it was a road this whole time.
It's not a road, it's a walkway, but I would recommend that you get your property owner or the landlord involved and to see if you need some sort of an engineered idea that this would work.
And then if you did require, like you said, 10 to 15% of spots in the community, would that still be accessed through Valley View or would that be able to be accessed by Highland? That's the only other.
That's a good question. And since we haven't really, I didn't really make that part of my motion, did I? So wondering if I should add that as a condition. I'm amending my motion to add that as a condition as well, that 15% of the spots will be for the community. Commissioner White, can I get you to amend your second?
Yep. I'll amend my second. Yep.
Thank you. So there, that's even a little clearer now. And any more discussion on this or any additions? Anybody, anything else to this? Commissioner Zipperly.
The only other concern that came up in reading through the public comments was someone mentioned egress in case of fire from the building, and all the separate rooms do have two means of egress, but lots of them are onto a combustible deck or out or coming out underneath the combustible deck. And that neighbor did suggest that we require fire suppression. I am sure that's a major expense for Maggie, but I wonder if the landowner, Valley View, might be invested in upgrading their fire suppression systems. I'm not sure if we can, I know we can require that, but as a discussion, is this taking it too
Yeah,
far?
the only thing I would say is that there are going to be, there's multiple layers of sort of approval for this kind of a facility, all the way from our internal fire marshal and building department to the state to, so I don't know that we're in a position to really answer that question right now.
I would imagine that'll be ironed out when we have building permits and all that kind of stuff. So. Great. Anybody else? Any more comment? No, I'll see none. Then I'll ask for the question to continue planning item 4020 to next month's meeting.
Commissioner Shaver,
Yes.
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Sipperly,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Dim,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks everybody for hanging in there. Sorry, I was a little confusing when I tried to do this, but I think it worked out. Thank you, Carl, for your input as always. Thank you, Maggie. I hope you can get something together and we can see each other again next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Now let's move. We're gonna jump, let's see, we're gonna jump planning item B for now and moving into our new item for tonight. And Jen, will you promote whoever needs to be promoted, please? It is planning item 6920, consideration of a special use permit for a retail marijuana establishment.
Can you remind me who all I need to bring over?
Yes, so far that I see in the attendance list, that would be Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning, Eric Marquez, and John Diet. And if you'll confirm on your end that you can see my slideshow, I'll get going. Okay, thank you so much, and good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Yep.
I just said hi. Hi, Trent.
Oh, hi. Okay, sorry. I didn't know if you were to tell me you couldn't hear me or something.
No. Just hi, Trent.
This is a special use permit for the Kind Castle and planning file number 6920. I did want to give you just a very quick history because you may have remembered this application from back last year. But in June of 2020, a similar yet different application was denied by City Council 5-2. That was following a recommendation for denial of 7-0 from the Commission in early May. Thereafter, the applicant attempted to address various issues and concerns that were raised by both bodies and asked City Council for permission to submit a revised application within the minimum year period required by the code. They granted that approval back on October 15th, 2020. And then the applicant submitted the revised materials officially in November of last year. The proposal is located at 2114 Grand Avenue. This is an approximately 0.4 acre site that has an existing approximately 3,000 square foot building. One difference in this current application is that the applicant would like to establish the retail marijuana establishment in Suite C as well as a portion of existing Suite B. That would total approximately 2,000 square feet of space for that use, and they are going to retain the rest of the entirety of the building for office space for the business. So it will not be part of the retail facility. However, it will be leased and managed by the applicant. As you know, Section 70-2030E, Table 30.1 identifies retail marijuana establishment as a special use permit in the M1 zone district, which is what this property is located in. All of the properties to the north, south, east, and west are also zoned N1, as you see there in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen as a copy of the city's zoning map there. And then, of course, the existing building is shown, and that's the west frontage along Grand Avenue there at the top right. What are some of the other differences in this application that helped City Council determine that it was substantially different? For one, seeing that the applicant intends to occupy the entirety of the at least commercial spaces of the building, they would plan to remodel the front facade. This is a rendering here at the bottom that gives you an idea of what they would like to do. Of course, city staff would review that with a building permit or any other required review prior, to operation of the use there, just to see how it complies with our standards. But they certainly are trying to incorporate multiple materials and colors and fenestration of the windows and doors to try to improve that aesthetic from Grand Avenue. Another thing you might have noticed in your staff report is that they would like to eliminate the existing freestanding monument sign that's located on the property, as well as some banner signage. Of course, any new signage at the site would have to apply for approval under separate permit from the City Community Development Department. Another thing recently they offered is an attempt to restrict access to right in, right out movements into this property. You may remember that there was some concerns about the existing kind of wide open access along Grand Avenue. Of course, CDOT in the access control plan for Highway 82 has a requirement that this property, as well as the property to the south, upon redevelopment, would have to combine their accesses to one point and restrict that to right in, right out. Staff has included a recommendation for a condition that they work with CDOT and the city engineer to come up with some form of restricting that access. They I think propose signage, but I think we would be more interested in something that would actually be a physical barrier to folks being able to still make left turns either in or out of the property, something like a pork chop or something to restrict that flow there. One of the comments I received from engineering on this project was some concerns about interior circulation in the parking area. So you would have noticed an updated site plan from the architect, or I'm sorry, from the applicant, that depicts kind of a means of making the existing spaces more accessible by making them 90 degrees. That would allow for better turning movements in and out of in the interior of the parking lot there. Section 70-30-30E11 outlines the retail marijuana establishment review criteria. You may also remember last year that you did review some changes to the marijuana regulations in the city, many of which were adopted by City Council, but not all. I will note that since this application came in and was submitted prior to the effective date of those regulations in December, we have reviewed this application based under the previous standards. One of those specifically being buffers from existing public schools. And this application is 600 feet from St. Stephen's School and or Columbine School, and over 3,000 feet from the closest retail marijuana establishment, being Green Dragon to the south. Requirement for applicable zone districts that it be allowed. It is in the M1 district. D, that the operation adhere to the required hours of the day, which they will be required to. Sign permit being required prior to install. Requirement for storage of the actual product to be less than 25% of the licensed facility, and that no discernible odor shall permit beyond the exterior premises. As usual, we have included a condition that tries to address that matter. However, the applicant has also even beefed up the odor mitigation involved with their HVAC system, since that has been a concern that was raised in the past. Also must adhere to the general special use permit criteria, I being that it will be compatible with the surrounding area. Uses in this area include lodging, multifamily residential, automobile fuel sales, and then of course, they kind of cater to the Highway 82 corridor, which this is a retail use is intended to do the same. Impacts have been adequately minimized. Again, I addressed that potential odor nuisance, but the applicant has done a lot to try to address some of the access, circulation, and aesthetic issues that were brought up previously. Consistency with the general purpose and intent of the code, that it will comply with applicable standards of the code. V, that is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. This property is designated as commercial in the comprehensive plan, and because it's infill development, it does support many of the goals and objectives identified therein, listed here on this slide. 6, minimizes adverse impacts to health, safety, and welfare. It does not appear to negatively impact any of those aspects. Received comments from CDOT and engineering that were pretty similar in nature. The need to address an access permit for this site, as well as to reserve an easement for future combined access with the property to the south upon redevelopment. There's a question about circulation I mentioned previously from the engineering department, as well as access via 22nd lane. We have received comments from Garfield and Hecht, who represents the Cedar Lodge to the north. They, along with Virginia Guerra, submitted comments in opposition to this application that was included in your packet. Also, in support of this submittal, were petitioned from some adjacent property owners, or at least tenants, and the property owner themselves. Section 706030 G1D allows you to recommend to City Council approval with conditions, or denial of this application. Of course, you can always continue it if you need additional information from staff or the applicant. Staff recommends that you recommend approval of the application. Action item 1 with the findings and conditions that are listed on pages 9 and 10 of the staff report. And I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Trent. Let's see, back to the commission for questions to staff. And we lost Commissioner West. He excused himself, he had to run. So down to 4. We'll start with Commissioner Shaver, please.
Hi, Trent. I'm wondering, the rest of Suite B, or whatever the designation is that residential? What is the rest of that to be used for?
I believe they intend to use Suite A and the rest of Suite B for office use. There is some residential use in the rear of this property, Mr. Shaver.
Okay, so that answers that. Well, the requirement of right in, right out, I guess if you're traveling south on Grand and you've got the center waiting lane, or whatever they call it, turning lane, you could turn in with a left turn then as well, I presume.
I think and that is the intent of staff with wanting something that's more of a physical barrier. There probably need to be some signage as well at that property, but the intent would be, like a concrete pork chop. Sorry, my simple language there, but that's kind of what they're described as a means that would still restrict that flow into the property from the center turning lane along Highway 82. Could someone still make that movement? Yeah, you see folks do that, but it certainly intends to limit their ability to do so.
So that's like a curved curb on the property itself? Is that the idea?
Correct.
Okay. Now, when redevelopment happens, then there's supposed to be a combined access with Stinker. Is this property required then to join in that combined access once the Stinker store, if the Stinker store does redevelop their property? How does that work?
I don't think that they would be required beyond their ability. I mean, there may have to be some coordination, but we've kind of always anticipated that because of the size of both the Stinker site as well as this site, that redevelopment would likely need to include both parcels. That was one of the limitations, if you can remember, with the improvements that Stinker wanted to do, is that we wanted to require them to combine that access, but the site was, especially that one, was just limiting in terms of circulation therein. But I think there would have to be coordination, George. I don't think that they could, completely limit access to either one or the other site, without some coordination between the owners.
So both properties would have to be redeveloped at the same time?
I don't know that they would have to be redeveloped, but there would need to be coordination at least with one and or both of the owners of those properties to address circulation for both. There was a time when we thought you may be able to combine those accesses and then have just access via this site to the Stinker site without having to redevelop, but there was just not much interest at that time from the adjacent property owner.
So I guess it looks to me on the one plan I saw that they would lose this site would lose some parking just to provide this dual access.
Yeah, I think you're right. Along that southern property boundary, there would be some impacts to this site's parking, but if and when that time comes for shared access. Our point, I guess, today is that we just want to reserve the area along the southern property boundary so that we can incorporate that shared access if and when it becomes a potential solution in the future.
And would that be a requirement of this approval if it is approved?
It is, I think, a recommended condition.
It is one of the conditions. Has the engineering department reviewed the current parking, straight in, non-angled parking plan?
I don't think that they have, but they actually are kind of the ones that recommended it to the applicant and provided them with a diagram. But I can't speak that Jessica has reviewed that just yet.
Okay. What about snow removal and storage? Has that been addressed?
No, I assume that maybe the applicant can tell you how that's dealt with currently. It's still going to maintain the same amount of pavement there today as they have in the past.
I assume, yeah, okay. All right, thank you. That's all I
Thank you. Commissioner Zipperly, please.
Thank you. In reading some of the applicants' assertions, they were saying there's plenty of parking on 22nd Street. I was under the impression, that there is no parking allowed on either side of 22nd Street. So that's my first question. Second, does this property have access or an easement to access 22nd Lane, which is to the east of the property? I am wondering that because of the concerns of the fire department in accessing the site and especially the residential units in the back. And also in Jessica Bowser's review from engineering, she referenced an image below and the image didn't show up on her response. I see that she's on here and I'm wondering maybe that image was the pork chop that Trent was describing. And I'm not really clear, is that device supposed to be installed at basically the property line or the curb, or is that in the turn lane in the middle? Because of course, when you're going northbound about in front of this building, you're intending to turn left into Starbucks and Wendy's, and can't see that a barrier in the center turn lane of 82 would work. So I'd like some clarification.
Now, I'll let Jessica answer, but I'll also give you a little bit of what I can. So in terms of the image that was not depicted was actually a kind of a hand-drawn recommendation from Jessica for the revised parking plan that was included in your packet. It was not the pork chop. I think the pork chop is just something that staff would like to review and take a look at further following this, if you were so inclined to include that as a condition. And that would, of course, need some coordination with CDOT and approval from them as well. I can guarantee you that that pork chop would not be in the center turn lane. That would be at the property line. 22nd lane, I haven't spent much time. I haven't invested much time in an easement for 22nd lane because this property does have direct access to the highway here. My assumption is that, the fire department's not going to be too concerned about where there's an easement and if they're coming to serve folks. But maybe the applicant can provide more detail on that, Carolyn, sorry.
Does the driveway go all the way out the back of the property though?
And your other question, sorry. This driveway does connect to the property beyond this. There's some residential units that also has a connection to 22nd lane.
Okay.
It is not our intention for the applicant to park on 22nd Street. Our intention is for them to provide the parking at their site that's needed, and they have done that with as according to the code.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner White, please.
This is kind of just a general question, Trent. I know we have buffer zones for marijuana facilities. Do we have, as a city, caps on the amount of marijuana facilities we have in town?
That was something that was recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission in terms of like a number of stores that would be allowed per our population, but that was not adopted by City Council.
Thank you. And then also the residences are actually connected to the building. Is that correct? There's a couple of residences in the back.
Yes, there's 2 dwelling units to the rear of the property.
All right, and let's see, Jessica, I think, let's see, commissioners, you were done with questions? It looks like it. So let's give Jessica the floor.
Thanks. So to answer some of Carolyn's questions, 22nd Street did have parking previously. It was on the north side of the roadway. It was limited till 6 p.m. And time limited. We did reinstall that parking on the south side and have it a bump out. It's more designated and it doesn't have a time limit on it. So that answers that question. I think there are 8 or 9 spaces. I can't remember. The pork chop. So part of the issue with this one is with the Sinclair, we did require, was a requirement that they needed to combine accesses with this property because they were redeveloping. And that requirement from the access control plan comes when it's a redevelopment. I think the issue here is this is a special use permit, not a redevelopment in itself. So the idea is that because in a redeveloped condition, it would be a right-in, right-out shared access between those 2 properties. In this interim condition, we were asked if we could have a pork chop, a right-in, right-out on this property only, just to kind of mitigate some of those concerns. And that would hopefully prevent people from making that left turn across lanes and make it a little safer. I think I got everything.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Any other questions? No, I just have a Trent, just to clarify and put it on the record again, and I have to do this, but the main difference is this time they're using the whole building up front.
Yes, I would say that is a very significant change in the application, as well as some of the circulation things we discussed, the facade changes, restriping circulation,
and the monument,
as well as
right?
monument signs, as well as restricting access.
Because last time we had an additional tenant in that building, didn't we?
Correct.
Okay, but the residential aspect is still there.
Yeah, the dwelling units are still at the rear of the building. I think the applicant can provide some more detail on that in terms of, I know that was a previous concern and proximity to those, and I think the applicant will probably address that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, Trent. That said, would the applicant care to come forward and present your item? Please state your name, whoever's going to go first.
Hi, my name is Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning. My address is 523 Clinton Street in Ridgeway, Colorado.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I share my screen, Mr. Chairman?
Please do. Yes.
Thank you. Can you see my presentation?
I can see it.
Thank you. So thank you for your time tonight. I know you have a full agenda and appreciate the time. Project team, again, basically the same team as the Glenwood Meadows store, absent attorneys. We're trying to keep this lower key this time. As far as the location of the site, sorry about the text that's garbled out. Here's the store site: Cedar Lodge, Stinker's gas station, Alpine Bank parking lot, Alpine Bank, Starbucks, Circle K, Wendy's, retail. It's in a very intensive commercial area of the city, as you're all aware. The survey itself, there's a one-story building, and I'll show there's a break in here between the residential and commercial, and it's shown more on the floor plan that I'll show you in a minute. In the current parking configuration in the lovely sign, I think on that sign it's roughly 15, 16 feet across out there in the sidewalk. Then, this is just a Google screen grab just to show you the units A, B, and C for a little bit of reference. The lovely monument sign that's currently out there, and banners, and just a little bit today too, just some different views from different times with the current single occupant, the pawn shop. The other two tenants have vacated the property. And just the siding on the building, again, some fascia needs treatment. The siding needs to be repainted on the building. You can see the break between the residential component and the commercial component right here, a lot clearer. And here's a door that I'll show you on the floor plan that's referenced. Just again, the dinosaur is not on this property, just for the record. The "We Buy Sell Ammo" sign is one of those that will go away, along with the other sign just passed. And then part of the plan, and you mentioned the combining the store to be this all be the facility. That is one of the biggest changes, but I think the more exciting change is actually improving this building design. We'll have more details on this for the next meeting, but really looking at nice wood siding, stucco, stonework, really trying to break up this facade, make it a modern facade and improve it. And it's a significant improvement over today, where it's a fairly tired, and I somewhat call it blighted in a respectful manner, but it really does need to be upgraded, especially in light of surrounding area development. Our initial plan that we submitted to the city was this, kind of the status quo plan. Again, the new facade, the paint and repair, that both the facades, that's all on the table, a new fence. We were talking about landscape planners, that's no longer part of it. And then, the parking spaces, getting rid of the sign, you could scoot everything up. Well, the engineering department had a great idea, and this is the drawing that was missing out of your packet, or you couldn't see, was really trying to come in here and do as much parking as possible. We didn't quite get to the 11 spaces because I wanted to leave enough space going back here to the back. 10 feet in the turning radiuses just didn't seem to work quite right. We're more than willing to consider that too as well. So we took that, and I'll show you the plan here in a little bit of how we fix that up. But again, here's just a little bit more of the parking, being able to scoot in. As far as the pork chop, I haven't had dinner yet, but that sounds really good. I'd like to get more design. I'm guessing it's more of a curved exit out that's shaped by the sidewalk curb cuts, would be my guess, to where this makes it more right in, right out and difficult to turn into the site. So My guess is a combination of on-site and off-site improvements, and I believe my client would be open to that. We just need to get with the engineering department and understand that design. Here's the proposed design based on the engineering department concerns. We had proposed a couple compact here. We're probably going to go back to regular and probably stripe this most likely for handicap parking. That's one thing that we neglected. So we're probably going to go back to fuller sizes here on one, or maybe on this side. I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but we do need to add in a handicap parking, and we'll provide that revised plan for the next meeting. So we have 10 out front, only 5 are required. So we're double out front. Plus we have some extra in the rear. There's a couple spaces back here and then 4 spaces here. You know, some of this is for the residential tenants, but 1 or 2 of these could be used for employees in the back as well. As far as the plan itself, I had to turn this sideways to fit it on here. Here's that door I was showing. And here's the line between the residential units and the store. And we're basically proposing to create a new vapor barrier between the residential units and the store. So the odor mitigation works. So this blue line is new vapor barrier, as well as wrapping the storage room in that as well too. We talk about this in a little bit further on, but 2 heavy duty air filtration units, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 air purifier T600 units throughout the store. This just shows suite B and C. Suite B, I think the total is like roughly, you know, between the 2 of this, it's 2,300 square feet. I'll go through that in more detail, but this shows us the extensive security plans for the store, overall, bathrooms, layout, how the counters work, the lobby as well, cameras by the back doors you saw off that small alley. And then, you know, in terms of odor mitigation, there's one system that's actually in the HVAC system that heats and cools the building. And then those other units that I showed on the plan as well. And then we've got the 6 units. And again, the heavy duty ones, John indicated that these are typically used for grow operations, but you have these panels where you put the filters in. And again, this is 60 pounds of charcoal media to eliminate odors. So it's not going to be an issue with the massive 3,000 cubic feet per minute motor. And, you know, this is above and beyond anything that John has done in other stores. And then we've got these 6 air purifier T600 units. And those have 26 pounds of carbon filters, a HEPA barrier. And then this is used to treat about 12,000 square feet of odor mitigation. And again, the store, if you look at gross overall, it's more than enough to treat that. It's well over 4 times just for those units plus the other units combined. I'll say this now, odor mitigation has not been an issue, or odor has not been an issue in any stores, and it will not be here. And the residential units are being treated to ensure they do not smell the uses as well. So again, just to clarify, Suite A won't be a part of the licensed premise. That's about 650 square feet. Then Suite B and C are, and they're, you know, Suite B is the retail, that's about 1,560, and then Suite C is the facility, lobby, and storage. That's about 779 square feet. So this is really what we're considering, but just to look at the complex as a whole. As far as compatibility, we talk about this a lot with these types of applications. It's in an intensive mixed use residential and commercial area. We're creating an attractive commercial storefront. It's significantly improved over the current appearance. New wood or metal, 3 to 6 foot tall fence. We're proposing that, just to back up a little bit, in this area. And we would like to get input from the hotel owner on the preferred fence design, but we also want to make sure we're not interfering with site distance. So we need to just work closely with town staff, and love to hear from the hotel owner about that, and put some signs on the back side of it that say, you know, it's private parking, it's not for the store, whatever the hotel owner would like to see on that, we're glad to put on that sign. We're getting rid of the current blighted and confusing signage, and just simply going to small lower pole mounted sign and a building mounted sign that comply with the sign code. Eric Marquez, our traffic engineer, will talk about traffic in a minute. There's actually less traffic from this based on historic use. The improved parking lot design we've talked about, and the improved ingress and egress. So right now this vehicle would have to back out and almost go on the street because it's angled. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. This is the current design, and the proposed design, you're backing straight out this way and going out. There's better sight distance overall. And then the right in, right out only with the pork chop design will really help improve this. We actually are going to leave a little bit of space here, for turning movements and all. And if that one condition, I guess Trent will need to get a little clarity on that, because I read that like that easement needs to be provided. But if it's an agreement to provide an easement in redevelopment, that won't be an issue. But some clarity on that would be good, because in conversations with city staff, opening this up now didn't make sense in the past. And we hadn't shown opening that up on this current plan based on our conversations with town staff to allow this circulation. Stinker's gas station is actually approved of this concept of an easement. So we can open this up if needed now, or we can get an agreement to provide an easement in the event of redevelopment. But either way, maybe the wording of that condition can just be clarified a little bit overall. I talked about the vapor barrier, mechanical conditioning, the security, and the parking. We also have the written support from the store, from the current residential tenants and the current owner. Obviously, the tenants understand the use up there and have no concerns with it whatsoever. I just wanted to quickly go over compatibility, just to see where has the city found retail marijuana stores compatible with surrounding area development. So one store is the Green Dragon. Again, it's next to a motel. It's in a mixed use building with AutoZone, Colorado Electric Supply. There's appears to be an auto repair station, and it's also next to a gas station. So again, a real similar context overall. It's a little bit more open here, but it's in a intense commercial development. You even have a Walmart behind it, and the Conoco's over there to the right, and here's the AutoZone next to it, and that's the store next door. The Green Joint, this is at 1030 Grand Avenue. This is in a residential area with commercial really located across the street. Straight across, there's a restaurant and then an ice cream shop. It looks like there's some other commercial, but again, residential development. And this building actually shows that it still has residential use on the property. I looked up on the assessor's information today, and it said single family residence as well, in addition to commercial. Doctor's Garden, 716 Grand Avenue. It's in the downtown district. It's next to restaurants and retail. Very active pedestrian plaza down here. It's a great space, by the way. I hadn't seen that before after the bridge project. But again, it's right here, and it's just a part of the landscape. And this store too is showing as residential, so I'm assuming that's up on the upper floor. And then that shop is just on the lower floor. So again, another mixed use development. So as far as the store impacts will be mitigated, odor, we've talked about a lot, more than required parking. Our intent isn't to park on 22nd Street at all. It's just available as needed. It's just in the area. Anyone can park there if you're going to the bank or wherever. And the new vapor barrier with the units, the new facade, the improved parking plan, the right in, right out only, sealing, repairing, and restriping the parking lot, getting rid of the blighted signs and the wider curb cut. These are all improvements that really evolved out of the last process and into this new application. And we just want to point out that these improvements aren't going to happen without the store, and it will remain much as it is going forward until it's redeveloped. As far as traffic, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Marquez, if that's okay. Eric, are you able to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So As far as traffic goes, Apex Consulting Engineers was hired to do the traffic impact study. And there's a number of ways that we can do the study. And in the previous evaluation for this project, after we submitted it and after completing several other studies for dispensaries, we came to the conclusion that we don't get the same volume of traffic locally on the western slope than what we see in the published data that most traffic engineers will go to if they don't have any specific data of their own. So in conversations with other traffic engineers and professionals, including some people at CDOT, we concluded that it's always best to use local data when it's available, and we happen to have that. So we went ahead and took counts at the existing Green Dragon dispensary and developed local rates based on the counts that we kept track of at the Green Dragon. So as a result of that, and even though this project has more square footage than previously submitted, we're actually showing a reduction in overall traffic, where it was typically predicted to be around 31 vehicles or trips per hour, down to 25 trips. So sorry, Chris, but it's not vehicles, it's trips. So 25, our study shows 25 trips, which really means about 12 vehicles per hour, 12, 13 vehicles per hour. We also did an evaluation of for safety, and I call it the anxiety level, the level of service. And at the intersection, everything moves very smoothly, even for the left turns into the project and the left turns out. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the project is in between two existing stoplights, which allows a lot of platooning, so that there's big gaps in the traffic because they're being released in platoons as they go north and south down the roadway. Additionally, we included the operations with the existing left turn lanes in and out, and it shows level of service at the intersection, which is the highest level that you can have. And we do show some delays exiting, where people have to wait approximately 18 to 30 some seconds to get out, but that doesn't seem unreasonable for as busy as the street is, because we're showing traffic volumes upwards of 3,000 vehicles per hour.
Okay. All right, thanks. Sorry, I'll make that correction too on the vehicle trips. So we'll just say trips. And then Eric also provided a written rebuttal in terms of the traffic analysis that was prepared by SGM, and basically referred to the traffic study that was submitted. So again, we looked at that study and we've read the study. If you have any questions about the SGM analysis compared to this analysis, Eric would be glad to answer those as part of our follow-up questions. So again, we're consistent with the general purpose and intent of the development code in terms of protection of the public health, safety, and welfare, orderly, efficient, and integrated development. We're not displacing housing by the store. The use-specific standards ensure no adverse impacts like odor, traffic, et cetera. And we meet the applicable requirements of the development code. And then in terms of the standards, the license has been approved by the state MED. I believe this is conditional approval based upon getting the local approval. The buffer requirement has been met with 3.5 times more separation, with 3,200 feet to the nearest store, which is a Green Dragon that I showed earlier. Its store is located over 600 feet from schools, and it's in the M1 zone district, which allows the use. And then we'll comply with the operational requirements as set forth in the code. I just want to quickly look at this map, because this map is really a good indication of what's left in this, southern part of the city for stores. And this gray zone right here really is a place where you could put a store. After this store goes in, you probably won't be able to get another store in this area. So the city's standards are working. It's spreading it out. Of course, this store no longer exists. So sorry, this is an older buffer map, but I really think this is key in showing where there is a good place for the store and how the store city's requirements are working to actually limit stores. It will comply with the hours of operation. We'll get sign permits for the pole mounted sign and building sign. The storage area requirements are met, and we have exceptional odor mitigation. Trent already went through how the project complies with the Glenwood Springs comprehensive plan. I'm not going to dwell on that, but it does comply with a lot of the standards overall in terms of the regional standards, economic development, protecting small town character, etc. The engineering department referral comments, CDOT. Again, this looks like it's a non-issue, but we'll make sure that Eric works with the engineering department, and if needed, we'll address that, but I think it's all been solved. I'll show an email on this in a minute. There should be a shared access easement dedication with the Sinclair station. We certainly can get that as an agreement to provide an easement during redevelopment, because to get an easement now, if it's needed, we certainly can, but if it's a future easement, then maybe it's an agreement that's just recorded that says we agree to provide an easement should one or both sites redevelop. I don't know how that works. We can talk through it. And then the parking, we look forward to the review of our plan, especially with the addition of the handicap parking. And then the CDOT comments in regards to the traffic study. Again, CDOT has no concerns on comments for the development. This was dated in January, but we'll circle back on that. We do have a few affidavits. This is from one of the apartment renters in the back, and then or actually, I think, yeah, that's in the back. And here's someone from over on 22nd Street, and then the owner. We have a few others, I believe, that we've gotten in. And then as far as public comments, there are several other stores in the community, and I pointed this out, that are close to housing or in mixed-use developments. We're really no different than these other stores. So we understand some people have a concern with it. The code was designed to allow these in certain areas, and we comply with those standards. And so there's really very few sites left in the community, and we're not going to go through that. And overall, it's really not a moral question on these anymore, in our opinion. And per the code, they're evaluated based on a prescriptive and objective standards. And probably the most subjective standard you have is compatibility. And if we're being engaged as other stores are, we certainly pass that same test based on those 3 other stores we went through. We actually have less concentration and more buffering than those other stores. And we're doing significant site improvements that other stores aren't required to do, including improving the storefront, et cetera. So we really hope you agree with that and recommend approval. And then this was already touched on. There's no limit in terms of the number of stores in the city. And this city also determined the application is materially different. Garfield and Heck wrote about this quite a bit. It's really a non-issue for this matter. We're past that. We're into the special use permit process now. And we actually think the store will approve the safety and functioning of appearance way more than other stores that were approved, and really trying to go above and beyond other store conversions just to address concerns. And again, a lot of this I've already said in terms of the plan envisioning this and the new storefront. And, I know this is a philosophical decision, but someone could propose a liquor store here and it wouldn't get near this level of scrutiny, but liquor causes way more impacts in a community, in our opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, this store. And then we also have the new fence, the new storefront to address the hotel concern. And I think a lot of our improvements address some of those comments. We're glad to answer any questions you have. I think just going back through the list, the fire department access to the site, they're not going to pull back in this site in a fire. They will stage out front. I doubt they'd even pull in the front parking lot in the event of a fire. They're going to stage from some surrounding parking lot, whether it be Alpine Bank or actually out on Grand Avenue, and get into the site. Even the hotel site, they might stage from it. It really depends on the circumstance. As far as snow removal, we will haul off snow as needed. There's some limited room on site, but it is very tight. But I think in the end, what you see with that store site is plowing into very limited areas and hauling off as needed. And I think that's it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for all the information. Back to the commission. Any questions to the applicant at this point? Or staff for that matter, if something came up. Please raise your hand. See no question. I have a quick question. Oh, there's two. Excellent. Wasn't waiting long enough. Let's see, Commissioner White, please.
I noticed in one of the public comments, it was from the attorneys representing the hotel adjacent to the subject property. They mentioned a facility that houses children that are abused and maybe get treatment. I can't imagine, Trent, that there's any sort of there's no buffer zone or anything that would apply to that scenario like there is the schools.
No, and I'm assuming that's back on to the east or northeast of the site over towards the hospital. I'm not really sure where that's at, but that they won't even see this facility. And I appreciate their concerns, but there's no buffering requirement for that. You're correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Zipperly.
I have a couple questions for Eric from Apex. One of them being, do we know how many employees will be on site at a time, and have we made allowance for them to park? And my other question is, again, back to the pork chop. How big is it? Like, is it going to take up a lot of room at the curb that might compromise one of these parking spots? I'm picturing there'll be a barrier between the incoming and the outgoing traffic. So I want some assurance that said pork chop is not going to eat up one of the parking spots. And then my, well, I guess the Alpine, Chris from Alpine might have more information on the number of employees and the parking, but another question for him would be, are we at all addressing the side elevation? I see lots of improvements to the western Grand Avenue facade of the building. And the first sort of 20 or 30 feet of the south elevation of this building was shown in your photographs. And I'm just not sure that paint is going to really improve the look of that, especially seeing the western facade come along and then just stop at the corner, and then we've got corrugated metal. I'm wondering, have you considered a few extra treatments or something to freshen up the southern facade of the building that's visible from the stinker parking lot?
We're certainly open to that. We don't want to cross the threshold, which Trent will know that percentage that triggers it into a complete redevelopment. So we're more than willing to, if needed, put on new Core 10 siding. Maybe, people love rusty metal for some reason. But we, that's an easy fix for that one facade. And that's definitely metal siding. So you either put new paint on or you put on rusty metal siding to replace it. And that siding is probably still good. So I'd want to probably look, and we have committed to repainting both the south elevation and the north elevation with new paint. So I think the painting of that siding, we can even paint it to look rusty and do it that way. But that is on the game plan, to paint that up and fix any missing boards, etc.
Right, but it has very limited or no relation to the new front of the building.
No, not at all. To the extent, yeah, the front is stucco wood. And then, I meant to show you this earlier. I got this, it's hot off the press from our architect. But let me share my screen first. Hang on. And then Eric can answer the questions. Hang on, let me. So this is more detail on that. So we've got some stucco, stone base, wood, stucco. This is a more detailed drawing of it. I guess we could continue that back a little bit I wouldn't want to get too crazy with stucco on an access way, but maybe look at some appropriate, instead of portent, maybe some, I've seen some metal siding that might be appropriate in there. That's just simply maybe a darker metal that kind of blends with these darker colors.
Or wrap your lick and stick base around the side to sort of just tie the two facades together. There's no cord.
Yeah, no, that's certainly something that we're willing to consider and look at. So yeah, that's more than appropriate. It's just a matter of how far back do you go? Is it the full length of the building? Is there, there's got to be some transition from new to old, and I just don't know where that begins or ends. We'd leave that up to our architect, but certainly a good recommendation.
Okay.
So as far as the question about employees, when doing the peak volume calculations, we don't discern whether or not the vehicles are carrying employees or guests. So that's not a consideration in doing the peak hour evaluation. So as far as parking, our study didn't evaluate that, but during the presentation, I did some quick calculations. And so assuming all things equal, and we just try to make things simple and say there's 16 spaces and 10 of those are going to be available for people that are there to visit the dispensary, that still leaves a turnover of like 50 minutes per parking space, which seems adequate. I don't know what the usual duration is for somebody that's going into one of these stores is, but I can't imagine that it's any more than what you would see at a liquor store. And the turnovers there vary depending on whether it's a high end or low end. But I would expect that 50 minutes is going to be more than adequate.
Yeah.
Do we know how many employees there plan to be on site at most times?
Yeah, in terms of the parking, I'd have to consult with John on that. We'll get back to you on the answer for that because I don't want to wing that one. But as far as the parking requirements go for jurisdictions, it's assumed that those parking studies, they come out of like ITE and other jurisdictions. The parking requirement for Glenwood Springs is the highest that I've seen yet. And I'm doing these stores in Durango and every place else for John. And you have 1 per 200. That's a really high parking requirement. So even if you have 1 per 300, whatever, then it gets into more, the assumption is that parking is also for employees. John has indicated there are some employees that already work in his parachute store that will be just simply walking here or riding their bikes. But let me get the answer for you for that for the next meeting so I can share that with you.
Okay.
And as far as the pork chop goes, I'm going to mix that with a comment that I had that I wanted to raise previously but forgot. There's some discussion about the easement with the adjacent property, the Stinker store, and I meet with CDOT regularly on projects throughout the state. And in my conversations with CDOT, we've talked about it a couple times, and I've called and confirmed and verified this because I just want to make sure that I'm hitting the nail on the head. That easement is a requirement for this project to provide an easement on the property that they're going to occupy. That's it. And at the future development of Stinker, then Stinker would have to provide their part of the easement, and then a shared access would be negotiated and worked out and designed. So really to talk about whether or not this is going to be a pork chop, whether this is going to be a flared entrance and exit to direct traffic in and out, it's probably premature just because I haven't seen CDOT's plans for the improvements on Highway 82 that would be equivalent and match their access management plan. But without knowing what the other entities are going to do through up and down that corridor, I guess we just don't know what's going to be required. Obviously, the city of Glenwood Springs could make their own requirements for that pork chop to be installed. But then they're going to have these same conversations with CDOT at that same time saying, guys, what do you envision, and where do we fit in the schedule, and when do you see all this stuff happening, and what if the adjacent property to the north does something before Stinker does? How do we adapt to that? So to answer the question specifically, a pork chop will interfere with the two westernmost parking spaces. So there would be some interference that has to be worked out, or some other plan adopted.
Can't that be done by simply designing the curb cut to have a curb where the sidewalk is at, and do the angle on the curb, and then you just keep the parking the same? In the end, I think we have a civil engineer on our team, and I think, Eric, if you can get with CDOT and kind of figure out what we need to do, and then we'll work out a design for the city to review. But my preference would be to try to design it into the sidewalk and have a raised curb where you don't want people to drive, and then the curb out coming out on that sidewalk if possible. Because parking's so limited on this site, I'd hate to see this type of design interfere with it if someone wants to make a left-hand turn into the site and it's not holding up any traffic anywhere, what's the problem with letting people do that? And I guess in the end, we would definitely want right in, right out. But
let me address that real quick. If CDOT wanted you to do that, you'd be doing it now. It's that simple. So
okay.
I haven't seen the access management plan, and if CDOT shows on the access management plan that they're supposed to combine these two accesses and provide a right in and right out, it's going to be for both. It's not going to be just for this property at 2114. Is that
yeah? So we'll get some clarity between this and the next meeting, because I think you're still on COVID protocols, right? Where you just consider it tonight and then continue it. So sorry, I got two quick answers. One, the turnover time for John's parachute store is 8 minutes. The number of employees that are anticipated for the store are 3 to 4 employees at one time. And we have those couple spaces in the rear for that.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, excellent. Jessica, more pork chops news.
Yeah, so the pork chop design will just have to be a discussion between us and CDOT and the applicant. Those can be anything. We have pork chops that are pretty small and minimal. It's mostly just a physical barrier, and they can take place, like Eric was saying, in the sidewalk. They're going to have to protect those parking spaces anyway to keep people from trying to access the way they used to and get used to that configuration of the parking. And like Eric, the access easement, half is on their property, half would be on Stinker. At the time Stinker redeveloped, there would have to be a discussion on how that parking is adjusted to facilitate that. But it's not, there's a lot of ways we can figure the pork chop, and it would be centered in that drive aisle to help those cars get in and out, and they'll be able to leave in a forward movement instead of trying to back across the sidewalk too.
I just want to clarify, we're talking about two separate things here. We're talking about limiting right in, right out access for the existing driveway configuration that's there today. The easement that we're talking about is for future combined access for both of the lots. So I just want to be clear that those are two separate things we're talking about this moment.
Okay.
Right. So that easement would be generally, when I used to do like come and goes, it would be like 10 foot on one property and 10 foot on the other for a 20-foot drive aisle. And that would be for a future easement. And CDOT hasn't designed this right in, right out. They've just said that at the time of redevelopment, there has to be one, and that's coordinated when that's done. So no designs are involved. It just says that it has to be right in, right out as a part of the control plan. And the city signed off on that and says that we'll enforce it.
And I also want to point out, I think pork chop, we're kind of leading in that direction. The way I've currently written it for both the easement and the restricted access, that these would be things that they would need to review with the city and with CDOT, and to make sure that they are achievable or okay with our city attorney as well as our city engineer. So I think we could probably talk about potential designs between now and the next meeting, but we certainly would not have any clarification on exactly what the improvement or the exact language of the easement between now and then.
Yeah, certainly Eric's idea of putting the curb cuts and using the sidewalk as that physical barrier is definitely something that can be done. We did that over at Berthoud's on 27th. They have their sidewalk goes through their right in, right out. So there are different ways to design it, and I think the new A and B has one that's in the sidewalk as well. So.
All right, enough of pork chops. I think that's it for tonight. A couple of questions, if I may, unless somebody else has a question before me. Raise your hand quick. If not, I'll just shoot. Trent, so all this remodel and reparking, striping, all that does not trigger a redevelopment?
No, not the current improvements proposed. That was one of the comments that Chris made. There's some limitations on the percentage of the facade that you can improve. I think you could certainly still, Carolyn, do some wrap around the corner, and I think maybe just painting those adjacent facades, one of those, tannish colors that are proposed on the front facade would certainly help as well. And that wouldn't trigger that. Just the restriping of the parking lot would not, Marco.
No, so
would it be inappropriate for me
it
to
would
add
have to be a lot more done to the building, different units, internal, a lot more. Okay. And the other question I have, Trent, would you have a current marijuana store dispensary map handy?
Handy, no, Marco. I'm sorry. Well, the map that they depicted, shows current locations of schools and I do not. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
I need to actually update that map to the new buffers, but I don't want to confuse, that this current application is being reviewed under the former applicable buffer standards.
Right, and I understand that. I totally understand that.
I will get one for you between now and the next meeting day.
Okay, so we will have a next meeting because of public comment, but not because this triggers a redevelopment or anything like that. And then the other question I had, let me think about this. Oh, it goes to Chris. Are you still doing the Meadow store?
Yes, sir.
So you're going to do two. That's the plan.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's that would be ideal.
Okay. I was just curious to see if this was, forgive my language, a cheap way out. But I was just
not at all. It's a business decision.
Right.
You go to a lot of these jurisdictions, and unless you can position yourself in the market to have a couple stores, the competition can really crush you pretty easily. And we're seeing this in a lot of areas. So this store is a much smaller location, and it's a little bit different market than the Glenwood Meadows store.
Okay.
By design. So
yeah, I was just curious because we did this lengthy thing over in the Meadows, and I didn't feel.
Yeah, it's kind of like deja vu, huh? But we're talking about pork chops at least, so that's good. Sorry, I said it again.
It's a little different approach this time, so okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this point from the commission? Okay, I see none. That means we are going to public comment. I'm opening the public comment portion of the meeting. And I see a few attendees, and please raise your hand. And we're going to start with Haley Kramer. You're allowed to talk.
Great, thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for your time. My name is Haley Kramer. I work for Garfield and Hecht. You all saw the letter that we put together in your packet opposing this particular application for similar reasons as before. We do believe that notwithstanding some of the changes to the structure of the building and the expanded size, it's still essentially the same application, and primarily the issue being that this use isn't compatible where it is. we see this use as being different from, or this location being different from, say, Green Dragon, Green Joint, or the downtown location that the applicant's plan or reference, because this particular store would be sandwiched between lodging, attached residential, and then surrounding multifamily residential with, while being outside the school buffer zones, it is near to 2 existing schools as well. So considering all of that in context, this particular location is different from others in town, and a marijuana store at this location would not be compatible with those surrounding uses. And that is something that obviously hasn't changed between the last application and this one, and it wouldn't change because the issue there is the use, not how it's being presented or how it'd be operated on the site. Notwithstanding that, we do still have considerable parking concerns, primarily the overflow parking. We did include a link in our letter to videos showing how people are consistently using the Cedar Lodge lot for overflow parking, even if it's temporary. They pull up to the side, walk over and walk into the stores at 211 Grand and then walk back. So at a minimum, we do think it would be appropriate to include an express condition requiring some sort of fencing or signage on that north side, or even with other surrounding property owners, if that becomes an issue with overflow parking, to make it an express condition on the applicant that they actively prohibit and work to eliminate overflow parking onto adjacent properties. And having that as an express condition would help with enforcement. Similarly, amending condition 6 to that was in the staff report to address violations of the special use permit conditions as another basis for the city to potentially consider revoking a special use permit. Right now, that condition only references odor and other issues addressed by the code. But if we can include some language there that a violation of any of those conditions of approval would be justification for removal, that would make sense as well. Finally, Commissioner Sipperly brought up a good point about 22nd lane. If people are parking over there and using that lane to access the property, if they don't have an easement, then they're just encouraging their patrons to trespass. So if that's an issue, they should look into that as well. We didn't hear anything on that point. So we do think that this application should be denied because it's not compatible with surrounding uses, and the impacts of this particular use haven't been fully mitigated. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, I pronounced your last name wrong.
That's okay.
One of these days I'll get it. Thank you very much for your comment. Anybody else in the public that'd like to speak up, please raise your hand.
Mark, if I may just remind folks on the phone, I don't know if you did this, but *9, I think, is how you raise your hand if you're on the phone.
Oh, okay. No, I did not say that. *9. So no change. Okay, thank you. Closing the public portion for tonight. As we've been doing previously, if you have comments or weren't able to speak tonight, you can send in your comments to the Community Development Department at City Hall. And you can do that by dropping it off into the electric payment box, the utility payment box, I guess it's called. Or you could email it to Gretchen, if you could chime in, or Trent, get us your email quick.
Trent.Hyatt@cogs.us.
Awesome, thank you. And the address of City Hall is what it's always been, and I'm not sure what it is. There you go.
101 West 8th Street, Glenwood Springs, Colorado 81601.
Awesome, thank you. That's a way of sending in your comments if you weren't able to comment tonight. Okay, so that said, I think we are done for tonight, unless there's additional questions.
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of order, at what point in time will we be allowed to rebut the public comments?
Good question. I think we should, did you take notes? Can we wait till next time to see if there's any additional ones?
That's fine. I just wanted to just make sure we had an opportunity to rebut comments.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a
Yeah,
nice
let's just compile them all, and then once we heard them all, we'll let you go and do your rebuttal if we can do that. So at this point, I think we need to, I'm entertaining a motion to continue this item. Let's see, item, oh boy, I moved the page. There it is, 6920 to next month's meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to continue planning item 6920, special use permit, to our next scheduled meeting.
Okay, excellent. We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any more discussion on this item? No, we'll see none. I'll call for the question.
Commissioner Sipperly,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Dem,
Yes.
Commissioner Shaver.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, applicant, for coming forward. We'll see you next month. And again, maybe we'll get some more public input. That's why we're doing this. So that said, let's see, it's 8:16. Let's reconvene at 22, 23, something like that. Call for a few minute recess and we'll tackle the code amendments. I'll see you then.
So Carl, I don't think I have a quorum for this item.
Then we probably are done for the evening.
Well, there's one additional discussion item on the agenda. The issue is that this has been continued since December, these code amendments, and Joy is new to the commission, and now I only have 3 people. I mean, Joy, I don't intend to call you out, but
No, it's so I think we have a couple of options. I don't know if Joy prepped for this or not. This is legislative, so I'm not particularly concerned about it for the most part, and it's a recommendation. The other choice would be just to advance it to council sort of as is, for lack of a quorum, because we can't just sit here indefinitely. It's kind of your call, staff's call.
I can run through, the commission kind of pulled out maybe 4 or 5 things to discuss, and I can run through those changes.
Yeah, let's do it as a presentation, and then we'll move on to the last item.
Well, would it hurt us to just do this next month? What's 30 days? Oh yeah, we're not doing a special meeting for the new application. Yeah, next month, I guess.
That's fine. I have a couple of folks that are waiting on some proposed sign code changes, but other than that, I'm okay with continuing it for another month if you want.
Gretchen, my question about that is, what else do we have next month? I mean, what are we getting ourselves into for next month?
So I don't think the big one in Glenwood Meadows is going forward next month. From what I heard from Trent, Jen, is that right?
That's my understanding at this time.
Okay. At this time. So then we just have the marijuana application and then these code amendments as far as I'm aware.
Is the meeting during spring break?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have kids. I never know when spring break is.
Is Mr. Chairman.
Last week of the month.
Let me pull up a
20th through the 27th.
Say again, Joy?
It should be March, like the 20th through the 27th.
Yeah, it's the next meeting's the 23rd.
Yeah, the likelihood of having of a quorum being a problem is probably an issue, and you're probably stuck with me too, because I'm not leaving for spring break, and I think Anna is. So
actually, I'm not either. I'm here. So, but I'm not a quorum. So, just part of a quorum.
So. You play one on TV.
Is there any way to update me quickly and thoroughly so that I can vote, or not really?
I mean, I think you could be up to speed by next meeting without question. I just think it's asking a lot to do that for this one. I mean, I guess the question is, are the 4 of you going to be here next month?
I will probably be gone.
Who said they were going to be gone? Joy? Okay. Carolyn?
I will be here.
George? Here. Okay. And Marco?
I'll be here.
Yep.
I'll reach out to Ben and.
Yeah, here's what I think we do, Gretchen, is if we aren't going to have a quorum, well, we could have a problem with not having a quorum at all, which is an ongoing issue that we need to. But if we're not going to have a quorum next month, I think we just move this on to council as is.
Now or next month?
What's that?
Now or next month?
Next month. I mean, we'll just do it. We'll just do it at a staff level if we're not going to be able to pull a quorum together, because we can't have things languishing forever.
Right.
And we have had a public hearing. We've met the requirement.
We just we're not going to have a formal recommendation, and I think council will understand that. I don't think it's an issue, but there are going to be some things coming up that we do need to you know, these changes either need to happen or not happen.
Right. So we'll give it 30 days in hopes of a quorum, and if not, we'll move it on. How's that?
Yep.
Okay, so that said, I'm entertaining a motion to continue item planning file 6620.
So
A second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? See none, call for the question.
Commissioner Shaver,
yeah,
Commissioner Sipperly,
Yes.
Commissioner White. Sorry, did you say yes?
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I must have been muted.
And then Commissioner Dem.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, excellent. Hopefully we can do this next month and then it's all properly done and all that stuff. So
Thank you all.
thanks, Gretchen. Let's see, moving on. Discussion, meeting preparation, joint meeting, planning and zoning with council on March 4th. I wish more commissioners were here.
The first question, Marco, is are you going to be able to attend that meeting?
Why?
We need you there. You are the chair.
Oh, just in general, am I going to be there? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I have a vet appointment, but that's it, I think. Well, not me, the dog, but yes, a vet appointment, but that's it.
Well, my guess is that you need to drive the dog there. So the meetings usually occur around 3:30-ish, 4 o'clock.
Okay, is that the
Somewhere
plan
around
for an afternoon meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, super. So this is just a general discussion.
what's the date
Sorry.
again? Sorry, Gretchen.
March 4th. And I'll send out a notice to all the commissioners. Carolyn's doing a happy dance. So I'll send out a note to all the commissioners inviting you all to attend. But the purpose of tonight is to talk about, you know, high level items that you might want to cover with council in maybe what, Jen, 45 minutes, I think is usually what we're being granted. So, I mean, you've already talked to them about housing issues. Think about other planning related items that were that you'd like council's input on, or you know, Jen's got the comprehensive plan update that we're going to need to do. So you might want to chat about that with them, although they're fairly up to speed with all of that. Jen's been keeping them aware of the need to update the plan.
Okay, so again, I wish more commissioners were present tonight because I trying to recall what I heard, but I can't. Maybe we can add, are you going to reach out? Did you say that? I'm sorry, you're going to reach out and ask the priorities that we want to talk about?
I can do that as well. Yeah, my reach out was going to be to make sure that folks knew about the joint meeting and were invited to attend.
And maybe what they want to talk about.
Okay.
Maybe there's I don't know, maybe there is a consensus. You never know when you ask things. Some people may think the same stuff. So housing we did, yes. Comprehensive plan. I would love to hear some more city-wide projects, updates. I know we hear them now and then. It's just a few minutes. Might be nice to know what's going on with the South Bridge, and it'd be nice to know what's going on with the 8th Street crossing. What are we doing with Bogelar Park, and so on. Just a few details. If there's anything new, I don't even know. I don't know if we have and that's probably more for council, if we have a final result on this public transit thing that went around.
The move.
Yeah.
Study.
Just so we're in the know. I actually have more of an internal thing that I would like to bring up, but I don't think that would necessarily need to be with council. But I would love to schedule a refresher training session for all of us. Just a a quick, this is how we do planning and zoning, and this is what we do planning and zoning, and also combine that with maybe a priority kind of brainstorming to see if and when we could, when we have meetings and we have a little time, it'd be nice to maybe talk a little more about planning instead of zoning. So we're not constantly the zoning police, but we're actually also a planning commission. Just like an hour training, visionary kind of things. That's, things we'd love to see in the future, how we feel about Glenwood and so on. It's more maybe a philosophical kind of approach to this. So whenever that fits, I'd love to see it on the agenda.
Marco, that said, are there any long-range planning type items that come to mind that you might want to cover with City Council? For example, we had created the 6th Street corridor master plan, things like that.
I would love to know what's going on there. I spent quite a bit of time on that with other very interesting people. I thought it was a great result, but I haven't seen anything.
Okay. And so to clarify, I meant, are there other plans like that?
I'm sorry. I thought you meant.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I've added it to the update list.
Well, like I said, the 8th Street crossing, I think even for us amongst the commission, I think it'd be great to talk about that, to see where we're at and what's coming and what's not coming. I know talking about the airport is a little premature. We're going to wait a little bit, but that's also something, that's kicked around. What is going to happen with the airport and so on. Jen.
I don't want to jump ahead of Carolyn, but I did want to, we mentioned you brought up a couple of things, and I just, it occurs to me that you may not know that Thursday City Council is having a special meeting to talk about, to go through, Terry Parch is going to go through kind of the information that we put together for the BRIC FEMA grant that we just applied for related to Southbridge. And I think it will be of interest to this group, of course, as planning commissioners and as residents, and also probably sometimes related to the work that you do in your personal lives as well. So that starts at 5 o'clock on Thursday, and Terry will go through kind of the, there's lots of components there, but there's an article I think that just published this evening in the Post Independent about that article. It has the Zoom link. And so I think that may be of interest related to the airport at Southbridge.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. It just feels like sometimes we're spinning our wheels a bit, by not knowing a few things here and there. And like I said, I think we're a great zoning police, but I'd love to do a little planning if we could. And I know I sound like a broken record, Jen, but workshops were awesome when we had them. I know Zoom is not the same. It's different.
There's no dinner.
There's no shooting the breeze. It sucks. But I'd love to get back to at least once a quarter, at least every other month. Just sit down and just come up with some talking topics, like I know they're breaking ground and the Meadows 3rd phase is coming, and that's a big building. Maybe we should just talk about big buildings. Maybe we should talk about surface parking lots, just for the heck, one more time, banks downtown and so on. Just a little more what we do, what we want, what we don't want. Maybe it'll help with the comprehensive plan in the long run. I don't know.
No, it will, Marco, and that the workshops are actually on my to-do list to get those ramped up again. So any ideas like what you've just given me would be helpful.
Why don't we, as in you, Gretchen, when you reach out for the 4th, okay, why don't you start a second line somewhere that says, hey, how about workshop topics?
Okay.
See what comes back. There's 8 of us currently. I'm sure something will come back.
I'm sure there will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carolyn.
I would really like to see where city council stands on moving some affordable housing again and looking at partnerships like, you know, public-private partnerships. We're doing all this work now in to promote affordable and deed restricted housing. I'd like to kind of get a feel for where they are on that. Do they have some interested parties? In terms of, as Marco was saying, getting more involved in planning, I think that would be really valuable. It seems from my other meetings that I've had with them that they're kind of looking to us to tell them our 3 or 4 kind of topics of concern. So I think doing sort of a poll or taking other commissioners' feedback as to how we want to prioritize this, since we have such limited time, would be really good.
Right. I would love to have a priority list for the P&Z as well. Things we can look at throughout the year. We're already, well, it used to be different. We were already at the chambers sitting there. So what's another hour, you know, of chatting about things? Now it's the camera, but we're already here. The night's already done. And what's another half hour chatting? Commissioner White.
So we talk a lot about affordable housing, which I think is fabulous. One of the things I see is, and I'm sure you guys are aware of, is just how difficult it's become for the quaint businesses that we love downtown to have viable businesses. And is there any incentive that the city council or that we can provide for these smaller businesses to survive and not just become a town full of pot shops and banks and, you know, these bigger establishments that can, I think, take away from the charm that our town holds. I don't know what that discussion looks like and how that actually fits in our purview, but that's something that's kind of come up in my industry a bit lately.
I think we can talk about viability downtown and liveliness and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, how do we make so that A and B Bank wouldn't get approved if it were to be reviewed in the future?
Yep, or at least have 3-4 storefronts on the main floor, no surface parking lot, and bank upstairs. Yeah, just like what we wanted, but there was no tool to get there. So, yeah. Same old thing. You got to have the right tools for the right job. All right, cool. So is that good enough, Gretchen? Jen? Yeah, kind of there.
Yeah, for now. I'll send out, sorry.
Go.
I was going to say, I'll just confirm that I'm going to send out a poll to everybody, get their priority list for, you know, council and then the P&Z workshops. But this is a good start.
Okay, great. Excellent. Commissioners' comments, real quick. Let's start with Commissioner Zipperly.
I've been reading up. I clicked by accident on the city council agenda for the airport meeting on Thursday. So I've been reading up on that. There's some really compelling letters in there. So I encourage everyone to attend that city council on Thursday and voice your opinions about our airport. And welcome in person, Joy White.
Thank you. Carl, are we allowed to voice our opinions at a city council meeting?
I think it is tough with the airport issues that are going on, just because they are somewhat complicated, and you're probably going to have to see some of what ultimately is happening out there in terms of rezoning. You know, regardless of open or closed, there's just going to be some land use changes out there. So I'd probably be more comfortable if you didn't, just given that we're struggling to get 4 people to form a quorum on the planning commission.
Right.
There was, and there's been some interesting, I mean, there's a case up in front of the state Supreme Court on quasi judicial and conflicts that is being briefed right now. And so I'm maybe overly sensitive at the moment, but I'd rather be overly sensitive than not and leave ourselves in a bad position.
Right. And
I think I've asked Ryan just now to notice it as a meeting for you. So I think you can all attend.
Right. Yeah. I'm happy to have, I guess what I'm saying is don't worry about watching. I would, I guess, prefer at this stage, particularly that you weren't commenting on it.
okay.
But I think it's important for you to be.
If we were to comment, we would likely have to recuse from future P&Z matters.
Right. Exactly. And that's where I just don't want to lose anybody, honestly, because council as well as staff really values you guys' opinions. And so when we start chipping away at that, it's tough.
I get it. So that could be all part of the training that I'm like to do, just so we're, I get all these questions and all these people asking me, and I'm like, no.
I tend to find out the hard way.
Yeah, I know. So, all right, great. Thank you. Commissioner Shaver.
I got a notice from Sumner. We were talking on the 11th of March at 5:30. There's what he's calling a town hall meeting. And they're supposed to talk about a number of issues that have been brought up. Water rates, South Midland, the underpass at 27th, South Bridge, Blake Gate, city broadband, city council priorities of 2021, current COVID status, RMA quarry update, and the MOVE study in Wright Glenwood. And this is by Imagine Glenwood in the city of Glenwood Springs. So that would be a valuable thing, I think, to listen to.
I'm sorry, what date was that, George?
It's March 11th. So not marching forth with Carolyn, but a week later.
Right. Excellent. Thank you, George. Commissioner White.
Are these comments just in general from the whole meeting? Or just from
as long as you don't talk about a continued application.
Okay. Maybe I have no comment then.
Fair enough. Playing it safe. I get it. Very good. Thank you. I got nothing. So Jen, anything else you want to add? We already kind of went through all the.
We did go through several things there. I was going to mention the town hall, so thank you, George, for mentioning that. And I think that we will be having some additional updates for council related to the MOVE study kind of moving forward. So we'll try to make sure to keep you apprised of when those things are happening as well. And Hannah is back in planning as of the 1st. So that's really exciting. So you guys can talk about housing to your heart's, till the cows come home, to your heart's content. Now that she isn't, well, today she was, but very soon she's not splitting her time. I think that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you. Good to hear. Okay, if that's it, then thank you to all. Thank you very much. Have a great night. This meeting